morning, Dan Proctor. You think the choice is dismal in New York City? A spin over to Mogadishu, Minnesota. I think they technically still call it Minneapolis. I don't know why. Here's the choice there. Jacob Fry, this beta male dink, who's the incumbent. You may remember him famously kneeling before the coffin of George Floyd, weeping uncontrollably. He was the mayor who presided over a police precinct being surrendered to the mob. Well, he's running against Omar Fatah, who's a Somali immigrant. May or may not have been married to Ilhan Omar like everybody else. I don't know. Listen to them campaigning. Are they campaigning in this country?
Somalia Hanulato! Somalia Hanulato!
Somalia, Hiran State, Mawisle.
As I said, I think technically they were campaigning in Minnesota, but you could have fooled me. Fateh waving the Somali flag and Jacob Fry just, the abject pandering, identitarian pandering you're used to seeing from honky leftists. The only thing that makes the New York City race interesting to me is Curtis Sliwa. Guardian angel Curtis Sliwa. I know he has too many cats at home to Trump's liking. And I know Trump doesn't like to back losers. But, I think Sliwa's earned the support. This was him yesterday on Newsmax last night, giving it to Rob Finnerty. Pretty good exchange here. And by the way, Sliwa, he performed well in that last debate. We played some of the clips. He's pretty quick on his feet. He actually boils things down very succinctly in a way that really drives a point. He's a lot better candidate than I think some people are giving him credit for. Certainly on the stump he is.
November, why aren't you on the phone with the White House asking the president to come endorse you and campaign with you in his hometown, New York City?
I welcome the presidential endorsement. He first saved Eric Adams from going to jail. The guy was the most crooked mayor in the history of New York City. That's the other guy who put us into this mess. If Eric Adams had been a halfway decent mayor, it would have been round two, like in 2021, the incumbent Democrat, Eric Adams versus Curtis Sliwa. So Adams and Cuomo got us into this mess, and you want me to jump onto a parachute?
No, I'm not asking you to jump out. I'm not asking you to jump out, but you sound like a defeated man already, and it's not even election day. Curtis, 2021.
What do you mean I'm defeated?
Let me just say this.
20 hours a day of a 24-hour a day.
I'm not disputing that you're out there every day.
Your candidate, Cuomo, has been off the campaign trail for 10 days, according to the New York Post. Don't say I'm a defeated candidate, because I'm fighting for Republican principles, law and order principles, quality of life principles. Maybe you like living in a city where they lock up toothpaste and don't lock up criminals, but that's because of Andrew Cuomo and Zoran Mandami.
I do
and
not.
I am the
Curtis,
one that can run this city like Rudy Giuliani did in 1993. Why is Rudy Giuliani supporting me? Why is Governor Pataki supporting me? Because they know the answer is Sliwa for mayor, Republican, 2025, Elise Stefanik for governor to take out Hochul 2026, and we get New York State, New York City back on track. What's wrong with you people? You want to become Democrats? Go ahead. You'll be run by socialists.
I like that. And by the way, that's a good little rhetorical device there. New York City, where they lock up toothpaste but not criminals. You could say the same as Chicago. For more on this, please be joined by Chadwick Moore, New York Times bestselling author of Tucker, the biography of Tucker Carlson, senior reporter for news features at the New York Post. His Substack is substack.com/@Chadwick Moore. Chadwick, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
I'm firmly in Sliwa's camp. You want to be a Democrat? You want to be ruled by you want to go support Cuomo? Then go become a Democrat. That's fine. I'm a Republican. I'm not folding in. I'm not doing Bill Ackman's bidding or Michael Bloomberg's bidding. These billionaires and these leftists who all of a sudden have been mugged by reality, they're even worse than these some of these EBT TikTok posters. Give me, I demand you give me my SNAP benefits now. I demand you give me your votes and direct them where I say. The hell with you. The hell with you. You're the one who put yourself and our city in this position, and I'm supposed to do your bidding. You're part of the crew that got us to this point. Take a walk. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do things my way. I'm going to stand for who I am. I'm going to represent the Republican Party. And frankly, Sliwa's doing it as good as I've seen from any Republican in recent memory in a big city.
That's right. That is exactly right. And look at New York City. They ran every Republican out of town. They made life insufferable for anyone who's slightly to the right of Mao. Not just in their policies, not just in their lawfare, not just how they run the city. Anywhere you go, any cocktail party you go to, any whatever, you're treated like garbage. You're treated like the scum of the earth. And now suddenly they want the Republican candidate to drop out to save them from themselves. I'm sorry, you created this monster. You have to live with it. When it comes to Zoran Mandani, I just say give the people what they want. This is what they want. There you go. That's what you get. It's not Curtis Sliwa's job to save the Democrat Party from itself, from this monster that they created. And I hadn't heard that exchange you played on Newsmax. Sliwa did great, and that was horrifying to hear that anchor speak to him that way.
Yeah,
it's infuriating.
Well, I mean, because everybody is so realpolitik, and they this is what we got to do. And this is the smart way to play it. And I've seen other criticism, including from Joel Ross, who writes those Ross Rant newsletter. That's usually pretty good. But, calling Sliwa basically an idiot for not accepting this alleged $10 million to get out of the race. So now if you don't get bought off, now you're an idiot. I mean, this is the perspective of the, respectful, responsible, civic-minded professional or elite, as it were. I mean, like I said, they're even more noxious to me than these sort of entitled, shiftless, lawless leftists.
Yeah, if I were voting in the election, I'm not, because I officially left New York City. I still have to work there, but I think for me it was the lawfare and Daniel Penny were the final straws for me, and I wanted it to count that I'm no longer a resident. But if I were, then I would say I couldn't fathom not voting with my conscience. I would vote for the candidate who I felt would be the best mayor. Oh, you say he has no chance of winning? Okay, whatever. I think I have a moral obligation of a citizen of this country to make it known that I'm voting for the person who I think would do the best job. So, these people trying to tell him to get out, it's not up to him to leave. And, people should vote how they believe, how they think would be the best leader.
Well, the other thing, too, is, Sliwa is establishing a beachhead in New York on which to build, even assuming that he loses, that you had a credible Republican candidate who made a lot of good points and afforded himself well. And, it makes the ground more fertile for the next Republican candidate who wants to run in New York and perhaps has more bandwidth and is more interesting to New York voters than Sliwa, who's been a candidate many times. I understand. I mean, he's not without his negatives. But I mean, if you want to compete for the leadership of metropolitan areas and seemingly blue states like New York, then, you need to have some activity and some reason for Republicans to engage. And that means participating in big city politics when the big city is the biggest city in the country and certainly the state.
He's also just such a colorful character. Someone was saying to me the other day that, he really is kind of the mayor that New York deserves in a city that at one point, not anymore because it's such a monoculture, but at one point it was a city that really celebrated its sort of oddball characters, which he's certainly one. I mean, there's no one more New York than Curtis Sliwa. There's no one less New York than Zoran Mandani. He's a citizen of the world. He doesn't care about New York. He hates America. But he's such a New York character that it's a shame that he's polling badly. But you're right to point out. I mean, he has stepped up his game incredibly when he ran against Adams in 2021. And I mean, it's an impressive turnaround in his skills, his debate skills, and his skills on the campaign trail. With that said, also, I just saw a poll yesterday that Elise Stefanik is actually leading Hochul by 1 point in a poll. So if Mamdani wins, you might have a Republican governor of New York, and you have a Republican president. He's not going to. I mean, he's already an incompetent. He's a grad student. He's never had a job. Nobody thinks he's going to be able to get anything done to begin with. But if he's up against a Republican governor and a Republican president, I don't really know what he's going to be able to do.
Well, so this will be the real test. This is a way to flip the script on them too. I'm glad you brought up Stefanik. Okay, Ackman and Bloomberg and all those who were holding their nose and throwing in with handsy Andy and telling us to do the same. All right, so now you want to stop Mamdani from doing anything in New York, at least that has to run through Albany. Well, then you should be backing Elise Stefanik against Kathy Hochul, who backed Mamdani, however ham-handedly. I mean, this is their opportunity to sort of prove up, too. Well, let's put this back on their doorstep to say, okay, what are you going to do here when there's an opportunity to end run a guy that you couldn't beat at the ballot box?
Yeah, we'll see if they put their money where their mouth is there. Hochul, it seems like she's in trouble. I mean, Mamdani kind of openly disdains her, and I don't think he even endorsed her after she endorsed him.
No,
which is
right.
Pretty funny. His base isn't going to turn out for her the way they're turning out for him.
Oh no, exactly. I mean, she is really pretty talentless, and so that's the good news. That just really provides the opportunity for Stefanik. I mean, I'm looking forward to that race. And again, I keep saying this, somewhere at some point, I don't know when and where, but you're going to see an upset in a big blue city or a big blue state just because of, well, all the things that we're talking about happening in big blue cities. And you wrote about one as well that we talked about on this show. That's just emblematic of what Curtis Sliwa said, locking up toothpaste but not locking up criminals. And, of course, the latter demands the former. The guy who stomped a senior citizen to death for the crime of holding the door open for him at the subway. This guy who has been arrested 17 times and the piece that you wrote about is he was a participant and a graduate of one of these great programs that Zohran Mamdani believes you should send violent criminals to in lieu of prison.
Yeah, this guy was not just one, but two. Instead of going to prison, he was put into two government-funded art programs, art therapy programs. And while he was in these programs, he was drawing pictures of beheading people, beheading the founding fathers. He was painting murals of communist leaders. Tons of his artwork was extremely violent and bloody. This all seemed fine. It was all on his public Instagram page, and so anyone could view it. Anyone at these government organizations he was in these art programs he was in, and these are the kind of programs. Instead of going to jail, he was in court in July before he murdered this man on the subway, stomped him to death. An old man who held the door open for him. The guy, this killer, just snapped and stomped him to death. Before that, he was in court for another crime in July, and his lawyer was saying, "Well, no, look, he's being rehabilitated. He shouldn't go to jail. He's in these art programs." And nobody bothered to look into what they were doing. They received massive amounts of funding from the city, and this is what Zohran Mamdani and the DSA are talking about when they're talking about getting rid of bail, when they're talking about replacing cops with therapists and social workers. They want more programs like this. So we can see how well that's working.
Before we let you go, I did want to ask you about Tucker Carlson, since you're the sort of official biographer of record. There's it's sort of bubbled up to the surface discussion again because Heritage Foundation President Kevin Roberts kind of came to Tucker Carlson's defense. Jonathan Tobin has a piece in Jewish News Syndicate that is critical of Tucker Carlson, particularly most recently for having Nick Fuentes on his podcast. And this whole matter of whether Tucker Carlson is just an America First guy who is critical of Israeli policy, the particular policies of the Netanyahu administration, or it's something more sinister than that. And since you have spent more time with him than most and wrote this definitive biography, I wanted your perspective on that debate that's raging within conservative circles.
Yeah, I was just talking to him this morning, as a matter of fact, not necessarily about Israel, but, my take, he has spent 30 years blasting the American government for things that they have done. He goes on and has a guest on his podcast who, in that podcast, they spent 2 hours trashing America, not America the country, but the government. Every foreign war we've engaged in, every coup we've staged, maybe our government assassinated JFK, who knows? And then in that interview, for 90 seconds, his guest starts saying something off script about the founding of Israel. And granted, I don't think any of his guests have said anything like Israel doesn't have a right to exist. I don't know about Fuentes. I didn't watch that one. But, or Jews control the weather. Who knows? Just something off script about the Israeli government is founding. And suddenly all the headlines are Tucker Carlson is an anti-Semite. Tucker Carlson is, racist, whatever they want to say. All the knives are out for him. It's just bizarre to watch because, he's far more critical of the U.S. government than he's ever been about the Israeli government. Nobody says he hates America for that. And it's a lot of these forces turning on him. The way I sort of see it is I think Tucker's sort of the same lovable mischief maker he's always been. I think he hates being told what he's allowed to say and who he's allowed to talk to more than he actually cares about what's happening in the Middle East. And as soon as conservative media figures in this country began attacking him for having a guest on his show who I watched that episode. I don't think the guy said anything super bad about Israel. As soon as they started attacking him, it seemed like Tucker.
Which episode? Which episode are you talking about with Daryl Cooper?
Daryl Cooper. This is what started it. Was the Daryl Cooper interview?
Yes, right.
And which is weird because I listened to Daryl Cooper's 23-hour-long podcast from 2015 about the history of Israel and the Palestine conflict, and I came out of that podcast being more pro-Israel. It wasn't like a flattering portrait of Israel, but it was very, I thought, human to both sides and very critical of both sides. So whatever. I don't think any of these critics listened to the 23-hour-long podcast like I did. But I think it's Tucker being Tucker saying, oh, you say I can't talk about this when I'm only going to talk about this. This is what he always did. That's what he did on Fox News. But now it's the right attacking him, not the left. That's just my take from watching this happen.
But you don't, so from your perspective and your interactions, you don't believe there's anything untoward afoot. You've heard some of the suggestions about some sort of financial relationship with Qatar, that he has turned against the Jewish people. Not talking about the state of Israel, but the Jewish people. That he is peddling or platforming conspiracies about Jewish people. Generally, that's. You dismiss those assertions. I've
never heard him say anything about the Jewish people negatively in an anti-Semitic way. I don't think I'm missing anything. I think I've watched most of his podcast. I don't think I've really heard any of his guests say anything about the Jewish people. Again, I didn't watch the Fuentes thing yet. But with the Qatar thing, I'm sitting here thinking, like, I heard people say he's on the payroll of Qatar or whatever. And I'm looking at that and thinking, okay, I think I got to know him pretty well when I was writing that book. I don't know why he would take the risk of taking a foreign nation's money and what that could do to his reputation. It doesn't make any sense to me. He doesn't have a mortgage. His kids are grown up. Yeah. I don't know why he would need to risk that. His wife is this lovely woman. She's not she's not demanding he make more money or whatever. I got to know her pretty well. They're not they don't worship money. They don't worship power. It wouldn't make any sense that he would risk his reputation and career by being on the payroll of some tiny little foreign country. My personal perspective is all of this talk is more geared at American conservative Republican forces than it has anything to do with the Middle East.
Chadwick Moore, New York Times bestselling author of Tucker, the biography of Tucker Carlson, senior reporter for news features at the New York Post, his Substack, substack.com/@Chadwick Moore. Chadwick, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Chadwick joined us on the turnkey.pro answer line.